Hello. I challenge anyone to document a mistake different from all the boo-boos that I have made so far, and most of which you will see and hear about in this video. Much of this video is simply me practicing and trying to learn this steam bending process. I hope you see this as what not to do and use all these mistakes as a learning experience. My first fixture was simply a 7-inch diameter cylinder of wood that was about 3 inches high. I screwed it to a sacrificial plywood table and then clamped a block of wood about 3/8 of an inch away that would strap the end of the piece while I bent it. And that setup gave me my first 3 failures. I didn't have this metal strap to back things up. I didn't have anything to fix the edge of where I was bending, and a bunch of other problems. So that setup, as I say, gave me my first 3 failures. So what you see here is totally redesigned. So I'm trying to replace these 2 skis, which came off of a small wood hauling sled that a guy's wife's father or grandfather made many years ago. The material is 2 3/4 inches wide and about 340 thousandths thick. That's about a 32nd less than 3/8 of an inch thick. And the guy brought me a whole ski, which I broke right there, and he brought me just the broken off end. Here we're going to look at various failures. My very first piece, I unknowingly used kiln-dried red oak door casing, and I got hardly any bend at all before that snapped. I tried it again with a little longer steaming, and I got a little more bend. Then I gave up on the kiln-dried wood, learning that I needed to use fresh sawn or air-dried red oak. So at any rate, then I tried some air-dried red oak, and I got that far and had a failure. So then I tried reworking my fixture a little bit and steamed it longer, and then I got this failure here. Then I tried improving my clamping and heating for even longer. I think I probably heated this last one here for 20 minutes because it said you're supposed to do 1 hour per inch, and it was only 3/8. Here I heated this for a half an hour plus, and although this part of the curve here isn't exactly like I'd have liked it, I almost did it, got it, but I had a small failure here where this burnt spot is, and I sanded that away. And then I had another failure right here, which I sanded away some of, but if you were to look real close, you'd see that it's cracked a third or half of the way through, so that's a failure also. I had 4 white oak logs sawn, and I took them to a local bandsaw mill guy, an Amish guy in the area, and asked him to quarter saw them, but he didn't understand what I meant, so for the most part, these aren't very well quarter sawn. This one definitely wasn't. This one, I should say, one of the big changes here, I forgot to mention, is that this is really quarter sawn wood, and I don't know how this is going to show up, but you can see that the grain is almost vertical to this dimension. So that's about it as quarter sawn as you're going to get. Actually, rift sawn I have now found. So I'm doing a bunch of things different now. I've got several sample pieces, all but 2 are sacrificial, and even one of those that could be a final one, I might do over again if I have success. But I have water in there about 3 feet deep, and I'm soaking them for 2 days. Also, I cut everything, I planed everything 3/8 of an inch thick. The original skis were 0.340, so I decided to make these as thin as I could and still meet the spec, so to speak. So I planed all of this stuff down to 0.340. So now my fixture is totally changed from the one I had before. My whole shop is only 13 feet wide, so I really don't have the room because I got two, 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag here. So I'm going to actually have to swing that table while I'm bending in order to be able to make my whole 190 degrees or so bend that I've got to make. Okay, so now I have one of these test pieces that it's too short, but it's just a test piece in my steaming box, and I'm going to let this go for 45 minutes. I had heard that over steaming was a bad thing, but the more I read, the more I found that apparently over steaming will just cause wrinkling on the inside of the bend, and I really don't care at all about that. So I'm going to do everything I can to make this wood as pliable as it can be. Remember, this is fresh sawn wood. It was sawn less than 2 weeks ago, and I've picked out moderately, this whole bunch of wood here is moderately quarter sawn. This is a sample of my setup, and we'll just see how it goes in a little while. I've got a piece of galvanized iron here and a locator here to trap the end of my part, and then I clamp the other end of the metal here, and the idea is to bend it around this form in such a way that the metal keeps me from having any stretching on the outside. It'll all be compression to the inside. Okay, let's see how quickly I can get this thing ready to bend. Unplugged the steamer. I used about a half a gallon of water in 47 minutes. Clamp this down really well so it can't slip. Hopefully, anyway. Here we go. Already made a mistake. The clamping board is too low. Sounds like I got a crack already. Maybe not. Yeah, I do have a crack. Okay, that's pretty close. Now that piece I don't think is quarter sawn, but it sure did make a crack. I see about 3 things I did wrong. I left this too high in here. Sure it's too late now, but so the wood was higher than the metal by about 1/4 of an inch, and that's where it cracked. I wasn't watching carefully enough. Okay, that's the program if I ever get all the pieces right. My piece of steel is actually 1/8 of an inch wider than my blank, my ski. So if I'd have done this right, there would have been some steel sticking out above here, and it might not have cracked. So that would be the thing to watch next time. So I've read conflicting stories about whether or not you need to have quarter sawn or rift sawn lumber. Some people say you do. Veritas, who sells a very expensive jig for doing this, says they haven't seen any difference. But this is definitely about as far away from a quarter sawn piece as could be. Again, it's just a sample to test out my jig and find out things like I just did about keeping the wood down below the steel. I allowed this part to steam for 48 minutes, and it's 0.340 inches thick. That's about a 32nd of an inch less than 3/8. And I had let it soak for almost 2 days in 3 feet of water in this container, if you can see it. One additional point, I saw one video where the guy eased the edges of the area that he was going to bend. And so I'm just kind of lightly sanding them. I took them over to the belt sander and just kind of ran it up and down there. And now I'm just kind of smoothing the roughness from the belt sander off with this 80 grit stuff here. Hopefully that's going to decrease the likelihood of splitting at the edges. And I'm doing that to all my blanks that I have left. Okay, I've steamed this piece for 50 minutes. Side and the rear. Slide this into the fixture. Pull the fixture up close. Push that down all the way to the end here. Up to the outside. Second point, just to make sure. There we go. Was a bump in the board here. It's just a little bit away from the form. right about here, but I'm going to call that good. Okay, now this is definitely not a quarter sawn piece. It's as plain sawn as you can get. And I haven't heard any cracking sounds yet. We'll leave it that way for an hour and a half or so and come back and take it off. Here's what I did with the previous one that I bent. This clamp is on here because I do have a split right in this area right here. And again, this is just a sample, but let's see how that turns out. Oh yeah, I see there's another split here. Again, this piece is also not at all quarter sawn. This was treated to about the same time in the steamer that one was. I was slower in getting this one set up than this one. And I made a mistake of not having the wood pushed all the way down to the table. So this is the second try. And again, these are not quarter sawn. So if this one can survive, then maybe I've got a chance on making a couple of real ones. We'll see. So the steamer's been on at temperature for 45 minutes, and I'm going to take my work out now and attempt to bend it. I have it labeled. This will be the outside. I put it in here. Just barely fits. Set it on there. Clamp it down as fast as I can. Because you don't have a lot of time, especially if you waste it. Got to get this lined up right. One of my first one that I tried bending this way. Bending this way, I didn't have the steel lined up properly. There. Okay, so here we go. Pulling it close to the form here. To the straight part there. All right. That's it. Now the program is to let it sit there an hour or two, and then I will clamp it, remove it and clamp it. And then apparently it has to cure for like several days before you try to let it loose. Here are two test samples that I did yesterday, early in the day. This was a failure because I didn't have the wood all the way down. This one worked out fine. It's too bad it's too short, because otherwise it would have been just fine. There are no errors in this one. But another thing that I did do is these corners of this piece and all the previous ones are very sharp. And I did see something that suggested that you ease these corners, although the guy that I saw doing it did that after he bent them. But I decided to ease the corners ahead of time so there wouldn't be a little sharp thing sticking out of here to start a break. And anyway, this is my first successful one, although it's a sample. So this one, although it's got a defect here of a knot on one side, if this one works out, this could be a finished product. The last piece that I bent failed miserably. This piece was not quarter sawn, at least didn't look like it on that end. Certainly looks like it on this end. That's funny. Anyway, now on to the next one. Okay. This one definitely is rift sawn. Okay. That's it. Well, I'm back again, and I'm about to bend the last ski blank that I have made up. And I keep learning little things, but maybe there are some people who just weren't meant to do steam bending, and I could well be one of them. I had been soaking several of my blanks in a tube of water for a couple of days, and I think that the one that I made two blanks ago had probably been soaked too long, and so I think maybe that's why the blank 2 skis ago cracked on me after it had been in the form for a couple of hours when I tried to take it out. I think it's because it was still too darn wet. So the blank that I bent yesterday, I left in the form overnight and then very carefully removed it from the form today without letting it spring open very much, fearing that that extra flexing might create a problem. And so far so good, it didn't. It looks like it's going to be okay. So now I'm going to do the last blank. And what I did different here was I took that one out of my water early this morning and wiped it off, and so I've let it dry for a couple of hours. And then I will go ahead and bend it, still 45 minutes in the steamer, even though it's only 0.340 thick, and so on. I guess this is backing up a little bit, but one of the things I noticed was that even when I took the latest ski out of here, when I took the sheet metal off of it, you could still feel that the wood was damp inside. And that's part of the reason I'm thinking that maybe I soaked the wood and got the moisture content too high. So we'll see what happens. One of the other issues that I had was when I take the part out of the form, it tends to want to open up. I don't have a good way to keep it closed tightly while I take it out of the form and then wrap a piece of baler twine around it to keep it, to keep it under pressure while it dries for a week or 10 days or however long I'm going to do that. So what I did this time is I took my baler twine and I've located it in such a way that I'll be able to pull the twine up and into place before I loosen up all my clamps. So here we go with the last blank, the last ski blank that I currently have made up. Well, I forgot to videotape the actual machinations of bending this last piece, but it went well, and I have it clamped up a whole bunch, as you can see. All I can say is it went well. I steamed it for 45 minutes again, and this time I put a little piece of baler twine in behind the between the wood and the metal here anyway, and then it comes out on this side, and as I go to release it, I can sneak this under the metal, the idea being that I'll have a way so that I can pull these things together so that when I release the clamps it doesn't open up and then I have to close it back up, which is one of the things that caused a mistake like this, I think. Well, it made it worse, that's all. At any rate, now I'll let this sit here overnight, because even though I took this particular piece out of my water last night and dried off the surface, I'm still going to assume that it was wetter than it needed to be. So I'm going to give it more time than I had in the past to make sure that I don't get a split like this occurring when I free it up. That's my last piece for now. If these don't work out adequately, I will have to start going back out to my fresh red oak pile, select some more material, and start all over jointing and planing and stuff again. So we'll see how this goes. I just removed my next piece from the form here, and I have it clamped up to hold its shape. This is one of the parts that I had soaked for several days actually, and then kind of let dry out for one day before I put it in the form. It's been in the form for 24 hours, and you can see that it's a darker color here than it is here, and what that's saying, that's wet. It's actually wet where the material was up against the metal of the form. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that gives me cause to make sure that I let it dry for several days before I try to do anything else with it. Let's try to get a shot of the inside here. Now, using the metal form, according to what I've read and heard, no stretching should have taken place on the outside, but on the inside it should all be compression. All be compression, since this couldn't have stretched. So they said that sometimes if you either have the wood over steamed, I take that back. From what I have heard or read, if you over steam the part, you'll get wrinkling of the wood on the inside edge. This is 11/32 thick, or 0.340 inches thick, and I don't feel any wrinkling at all here. So I'm thinking that that went pretty well. So we'll see how this works out in about a week. I left these two parts to soak in my water-filled tube for several days. So after noticing that the parts were still wet when I unclamped them on a previous part before these two, I decided to leave these last two parts in the form for a whole day before removing them from the form and tying and clamping them to fully set up. Even after a full day of setting in the form, these parts still felt wet and were slightly discolored, and I don't know if that's going to show up in the video here, but this part of the wood is pretty nice and white, and here it's a little darker. I think that discoloration is from the reaction of the chemistry of the wood to the galvanizing on the iron that I used as a clamp. Here I'm going to lightly sand and see how hard it is to get rid of that discoloration. And this is some old 60 grit sandpaper. So we're 20 or 30 seconds into this process of sanding. And, I'd say half of it or more, half or more of the discoloration has already gone. Just another learning point, if I was going to do this again, I wouldn't leave the wood to soak for so many days. Again, this was fresh cut oak, maybe 3 weeks ago it was fresh cut, and then I fresh sawn into planks, and then within a couple days I planed it, and then I let it sit a couple days, then I put it in my vertical tube to soak, And if I'd have soaked it for just maybe 2 days instead of 4 or 5 days, I don't think I'd have had this discoloration problem, because the wood wouldn't have felt wet to the touch after a few hours. Okay, here's the big deal. Now I'm going to unclamp these, and the thing to notice is I've got this board in here and clamped in place to keep the parts from twisting. I was afraid that some twisting might occur, and I want to avoid that so that my ski is nice and straight. So we'll see what happens when I unclamp. And the point is that my board was clamped up tight here, and now that I've taken the clamp off, let's see how much the thing spreads back out. And maybe 1/4 of an inch is all that it spread back out. I was surprised because the videos I had seen before suggest that it would, that you really have to go undersized from what you want because it's going to spring back. And here I had hardly any springing back on that one. So now we'll try the same thing on this one. And the clamp is loose. Again, hardly anything. 1/8 of an inch maybe, and that's about it. So, here I have 2 skis that I have successfully bent. No failures. I don't think it'll be a big job to sand off this discoloration, and there we have it. It's been a long process. I think I could duplicate it. I'm going to show these to the guy who asked me to make them, and if they'll work, that's fine. If not, I'm going to have to probably go saw some more wood, because I really want to understand this quarter sawing and rift sawing even better, and then I may have to make some more. But anyway, that's it for now.